Have you ever shared a simple cup of tea with friends, only to realize that something in the room was not meant to be seen? A shadow that moves when you do not look. A whisper that reaches inside your mind. What if one small, ordinary moment could turn into a nightmare you cannot escape? Watch closely, because once you notice it, there is no going back. 1 cup of tea with friends. The room smelled of damp wood and old paper. Soft sunlight filtered through dusty curtains, casting long shadows across the table. I sat with my friends, a steaming cup of tea in front of me. The warmth of the cup seeped into my hands, comforting yet oddly heavy. Laughter floated around me, light and careless, but I felt a strange tension tightening in my chest. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, like a warning I could not understand. I lifted the cup and brought it to my lips, noticing a bitter, metallic taste I had not expected. My friends continued talking, their faces blurred by my sudden awareness of every creak and whisper in the house. The shadows on the wall seemed to stretch, twisting into shapes that felt almost alive. I blinked, thinking it was my imagination, but the air had thickened, pressing against my skin. A soft tapping sound came from the far corner of the room. It was slow, deliberate, and it made my heart skip a beat. I turned my head, and the light caught something moving, just beyond the edge of the table. It was not my friend. It was taller, darker, and it leaned toward us in a way that made the air cold. The cup trembled in my hands. The smell of the tea turned sharp, almost metallic, filling my nose with alarm. I wanted to speak, to warn my friends, but my throat refused. The tapping stopped, the shadows stopped, the warmth of the room vanished. Then I saw it clearly. Its face was pale, almost translucent, with eyes that reflected the dim sunlight like liquid black. It did not blink. It did not breathe. It simply watched. A shiver ran down my spine. My hands gripped the cup so tightly that the porcelain creaked. I wanted to scream, to shatter the calm chatter of my friends, but the words froze. One of my friends laughed. The sound bounced off the walls, bright and unaware, like a cruel contrast to the cold dread enveloping me. I tried to call her name. My voice came out as a whisper, fragile and thin. The figure leaned closer. Its movement was unnatural, a sliding, gliding motion that made no sound on the wooden floor. The shadows around it seemed to writhe. The corners of the room darkened, as if the walls themselves were swallowing the light. I set the cup down. The tea sloshed, spilling over the edge and steaming like smoke from a small fire. The smell now was acrid, like iron and burnt wood. It filled my nose and burned my throat. A sudden gust of wind burst through the cracked window. Curtains whipped across the room. Papers scattered. The figure remained unmoved, calm and patient. I noticed my friends had stopped talking. Their smiles were frozen. Their eyes flicked toward me, but they did not see what I saw. They were still, trapped in some invisible hesitation. I stepped back, my foot catching on the chair. It tipped over with a loud crash. The figure did not flinch. It remained closer, as if drawn to the noise. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. I could feel the heat of panic rising in my chest. The air seemed thicker now, clinging to my skin and making it hard to breathe. Every sound was amplified. The ticking of the clock, the rustle of leaves outside, the uneven breathing of my friends. The figure tilted its head slightly. I noticed its lips, thin, almost invisible, but moving. No words emerged, yet a soundless message filled the room. Fear, deep and ancient, rooted in my mind. I reached for my cup again. The porcelain felt heavier this time, almost pulling at my hands. The tea inside shimmered unnaturally, reflecting the figure's dark eyes. I thought about throwing it, smashing it to break this moment, but I could not. Then the shadows moved again. Faster this time, filling the corners, creeping along the walls like liquid ink. The room felt smaller. The ceiling pressed down. My chest tightened. A whisper broke the silence. It was soft, almost indistinguishable from the wind. Yet it was not wind. It came from inside my head. "Do you see me?" I wanted to answer. I could not. My tongue refused. My friends were staring at me now, eyes wide with confusion. They could not hear the whisper. The figure reached for the table. It moved its hand slowly, deliberately, pointing toward the spilled tea. I noticed the tea beginning to stir, as if something beneath the surface was moving. A tiny ripple at first. Then more. A shape emerged. Dark, writhing, like smoke forming into human limbs. It rose from the cup, curling toward the figure. The sound it made was unbearable, a high-pitched, scraping noise that cut through my skull. I screamed, finally. My friends turned sharply, finally noticing the change. Their faces twisted in fear, yet the figure remained calm, watching. The shape from the tea hovered between us, rising higher and darker. Its edges burned the light around it, consuming it slowly. The floor creaked, then groaned. The room tilted. I could smell decay now, thick and pungent, like something rotten in a sunless cellar. One of my friends reached for the door. It slammed shut before she could touch it. The handle rattled violently, yet the door stayed fixed, as if held by invisible hands. Panic clawed at my throat. The figure leaned even closer. Its eyes locked onto mine. I could feel it probing, searching for something inside me. A memory, a secret, a fear, I could not tell. All I knew was its gaze burned through my skin. The shape from the tea reached the table. It spread across the surface like living ink, devouring the wood grain. The heat of it singed my fingers through the cup. I dropped it. The tea shattered on the floor, and the dark liquid crawled outward, moving as if alive. My friends screamed. The figure did not. It raised a hand slowly, pointing at each of us in turn. The air vibrated. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, loud, heavy, relentless. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. I could not see my friends. I could not see the figure. I could not even see my own hands. The only thing I felt was the heat of the shape rising from the floor. It wrapped around my ankles, crawling up my legs. Cold, sticky, hungry. I fell to my knees. The figure's voice echoed in my mind, clearer this time. You drank it. I realized it, the bitter taste in the tea. It was not tea. It had not been tea. It was a vessel, a doorway, an invitation. The darkness pressed closer. The walls of the room seemed to vanish. I could hear my friends screaming somewhere above, but their voices were distant. The figure laughed softly. My hands touched the floor. The dark liquid squirmed into them, pulling, drawing, claiming. I tried to pull away. I could not. I could feel it crawling inside me. It filled me. Then the whispers began. Not one, but many. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, all overlapping. The sound of countless voices, all screaming and whispering at once. I opened my mouth to scream again. No sound came. The last thing I felt before everything went black was the warmth of the tea, now cold, and the figure's eyes, watching, satisfied. Light returned slowly. It came in shards through the broken curtains, pale and uncertain. I opened my eyes, blinking against the sudden brightness. The room looked normal again. The wooden floor was intact. The spilled tea was gone. My friends sat around the table, faces pale, but alive. They looked at me with concern, as if nothing had happened. I touched my hands. They were clean. No trace of the dark liquid remained. I wanted to speak, to tell them what I had seen, what I had felt, but my voice trembled. Even as I opened my mouth, the words felt wrong, inadequate. The figure was gone, yet its presence lingered. The air still carried a chill, a subtle vibration at the edges of perception. It was as if the room remembered. I sipped the remaining tea cautiously. It tasted normal now, warm, sweet, familiar. My friends laughed softly, their voices grounding me. But I could not shake the feeling that something had passed through me, that some shadow had left a mark unseen. I left the cup on the table. Its steam rose in delicate tendrils, curling like the memory of a nightmare. I stepped to the window and looked outside. The sunlight was gentle. The trees swayed in a calm breeze. Everything seemed peaceful, yet deep in my chest, a small, persistent unease remained. A whisper at the edge of thought, reminding me that not all doors close quietly. Some shadows wait, and some tea carries more than flavor. I turned back to my friends. We smiled, nervously, awkwardly, the sound of laughter fragile but real. One cup of tea had passed, and life had returned to its ordinary rhythm. But I knew, in the quiet moments, I would remember. And I would never sit down with a steaming cup so carelessly again. The room was still. The sun moved slowly across the ceiling. And somewhere, in the hidden corners of memory, a shadow lingered, patient, watching, waiting.